Hey.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good.
Good.
Welcome everyone to our podcast, Our Chronicles. So, just it's good if we introduce ourselves, I think.
Yeah, 100%.
So, my name is Dorette.
My name's Pamela, and we are here today to talk about the world of work, and we're talking about everything. The middle, the beginning, the middle, and the end.
Ready for work. You see me heavy work. You see me heavy work. You see me heavy work.
So the whole point is for us to have like open and honest conversations about this topic of work, and even what is work, like the whole idea of work as somewhere you go to 9 to 5 or even 10 till 6. People have different types of work, shift work. There's just so much domestic work, what's known as blue collar, white collar, although I always get confused with that. I never really know what that is.
Right.
But just the different types of work.
Yeah.
And we wanted to create a space for people to share what perhaps they couldn't share in any other spaces. So we've got our email address, which is ourchronicles@proton.me. So please send us in any questions you may have or anything you want. What we say is chat it out.
That's right. Chat it out. We want to hear what's going well, what's not going so well. We want to hear about your frustrations. We want to hear about how you're feeling. We want to hear about the good, the bad, and the ugly.
That's right. That's right. We do. And it's an opportunity for people to kind of just share the things that perhaps they wouldn't, like maybe when you go home and maybe you take your frustration out on your family, your partner, your dog, your cat, whatever. This is an opportunity for us to chat it out for you.
Exactly.
If you're not able to say it yourself, maybe.
Exactly. And, we're on Instagram as well. So definitely Instagram us at Our Chronicles. Give us all your feedback. Tell us what's happening for you. And also, if you're going through a specific problem, right, I do want people to be able to send us their problems and their queries. And it can be completely anonymous. And they can come to us and say, do you know what? I've got this problem. And we can talk about it, and let's get the communication going and feedback from this community that we're trying to build right now.
That's right. Yeah.
And obviously we will give you our takes as well, because as someone who's now a veteran worker, I've been working since I was 19, and I am no longer 19. I have a lot of experience and a lot of solutions actually to bring to the table if people want them.
Yeah, sure. I think what would be good is for us if we give a little bit, just like a little bit of history of our work.
Yeah.
What was our work? And I think it's important for us to try and be expansive with that, because work always seems like the thing you get paid for.
Yeah.
Excuse me. But we know that our work is so much more than what we get paid for every month. The PAYE, like our work encompasses so many things, our emotional labor, our time, our energy. And so, yeah, let's
talk about that.
Yeah.
So, what is work?
Every person must work. Every person must work.
What about people who are consultants? What about people who work shift work? So the world of work, as Dorrit says, is hugely expansive, and we should definitely bring all of that in. I definitely think the post-COVID stuff is worth a chat.
Yeah.
And especially what's gone really well and what hasn't gone well. But also we want to make sure that people have a sounding board and use our chronicles as a sounding board for what can become good practice. Because, there's lots of HR professionals out there, and, we salute you, HR, we do. But there's loads of HR professionals out there, and we understand their frustrations. We understand what they have to cope with as well. But then there's a lot of people who are working in organisations where there's no HR.
Yeah.
And they are either self-governing, or they're a collective,
Yeah.
or they're distributed leadership, and the HR is outsourced. So there's lots of different facets. And also, Dorrit, to your point, you talked about coming home and, kicking the cat or whatever.
Well, not kicking the cat.
Yeah, well, we love animals.
Yes, we do.
But also around the wellness of work. And I know wellness is a real buzzword at the moment, where people are like, oh, well, for my wellness and, all of that good stuff. But actually, it is absolutely imperative. And, Dorrit, the knock-on effects to work.
Yeah.
And how that plays out.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've got your own piece on that as well.
Sure. I think it'd be good for us to talk a little bit about our own work,
Yes.
or at least our journey into what would be called work, inverted commas. A brief background for myself is I've spent over 30 years in social justice, and that's across gender justice, ending violence against women and girls, LGBTQ spaces. I've worked around HIV and AIDS. So there's been quite a lot of experience I've had. And also the majority of it has been in the third sector. It's been in charities and different types of charities, and what that means, and working in the women's sector and the joys and pains of that. And so that's kind of been like what would be seen as like contemporary work. And I've also done different types of work. Back in the day, I managed a bar, which I loved, and did drinks. I worked in different clubs in East London, which again I loved, and did bar work and stuff. So, I can go back. I've worked in sexual health clinics. Like when I was thinking even about this podcast and what we would discuss today, I was thinking, what kind of work have you done? And it's just been loads. So I think there's quite a lot that when I think about my journey around work, that there is quite a bit.
And also you work for the Met Police. I just want to put that out. She worked for the Met Police.
She had to put that out there.
So yeah, you've done...
That was a long time ago, just saying, a very long time ago. 80s.
So I... Thank you, Dorrit, for that. And you've crossed so many sectors, so many different types.
Yeah.
When I think back to my experience of work, it's really interesting because I started off as a Saturday job. My Saturday job was in D.H. Evans. And for those of you, I'm really showing my age now because a lot of you won't even know who D.H. Evans are. But I worked in D.H. Evans, and I worked with small accessories, so gloves, scarves, hats. And I loved it. And obviously that was my first experience of work. And then after that, I remember going into the city and getting almost like a bookkeeper job. It was like a bookkeeper. We were doing sort of accounts for a small, I guess it was a surveying company. And I did that for a couple of years. And then I remember one day walking down the street and bumping into one of my friends. And he was suited and booted and he looked fantastic. And he was like, "What are you doing?" And I told him about my bookkeeper job. And he was like, "No, come to the city. Have you got O-level maths?" And I was like, "Yeah, just." And anyway, and then he was like, "No, I'll hook you up. You got to come to the city." And I didn't even know what the city was. But next thing I knew, I was having an interview. I was at this huge AAA bank, Swiss bank, and I was on the dealing floor, the trading floor, with hundreds of people, mostly men, trading, and I was being a trader support person. So, and then I stayed and I worked my way through, and I spent decades in the city at various investment banks and stuff like that. And then moved to brokerage. Now, investment banks are very different from brokerage houses, which are brokers, but we can come back to that One is kind of running through lovely, beautiful fields and sometimes finding rocks. And the other is the wild, wild west, with everything coming at you. So and I've done that for over the 30 years. So my journey hasn't been as expansive as yours, Dorette, but it has created, it's given me a lot of great experience. And also, you know, a lot as well as yourself, it's given me lots of opportunities.
Yeah, for sure.
Lots of opportunities. And that's why work for me is such a big thing. And especially with the work you and I do. By the way, Dora and I are consultants, and we speak to so many companies and progressive startups. And we talk about work, and we talk about behavior and conduct and, you know, building culture, all that good stuff, don't we?
Yeah.
So yeah, this is our passion.
Yeah, for sure. And also, Pam, as you said that, I thought, you know, also being a Black woman in the city at that time and what that meant, navigating all the different things, all that stuff we want to talk about, people, like how you navigate different spaces with the social identities that we all embody and what that looks like, what that feels like, and how that can bring its own challenges, right? Especially with the different climates that we've had to, and we still are navigating today. So work will conjure up loads of different things for loads of people. And we know sometimes it can also be a space of retreat work. It can be a space of, actually, I need to get out of my home, and work gives me a space where I can feel safer, I can feel relaxed, all these different things, as well as work can be a place that's quite oppressive and quite difficult. And so we want to be able to discuss all the different things, obviously with well-being at the heart of it.
Yeah.
Ensuring that people can talk about the difficulties.
Yeah.
And that includes us, because we would have had our own difficulties
100%.
navigating work and all those different things. The other thing I was thinking about when you were speaking was also the creative element, because a lot of the times when we think about work, like you said, we do think about the 9 to 5, or whether it's working in the city or charities, you know, depending on whatever type of sector you're in. But there's also the creative element. And I remembered I was a film reviewer for an LGBTQ online magazine. I'm not going to mention it because that'll be plugging it, but it no longer exists. But I remember feeling really honored that people had given me an opportunity to review lesbian and gay films at the time. And it was work. I wasn't paid for it, but it was such a passion. So work can be a passion that also takes your time. You give your time to it. And so in a way it's work, even though you're not getting paid for it. So I think there's something for us to talk about. What is work?
Every person must work. Every person must work.
Yes. What is work, people? And what is work to you? And for those of you who go home and don't clock off and keep working and work on the weekends and work while you're on holiday with the family, we see you and we know you. And we will be talking about you. So
and we were you.
And we were you at some stage.
Yeah.
Yes, because I remember being on holiday and my BlackBerry going and my husband going, who is that?
Oh God.
And so yes, and again I'm showing my age here, BlackBerry. But yes, what is work for you? What does work mean for you? And also, Dorette, you know, you said a lot of things there about the wellness. There's a lot to be said about how work impacts us, right? When we're having a good time, how that feeds us, how that makes us feel good, how we feel valued and we have that sense of belonging. And then there's times where work can make you feel totally isolated. it can devalue you. You can lose confidence. You can lose your footing a little bit.
Yeah.
And then you start to question yourself and your value and your self-worth.
Sure.
So there's so many pieces to the work context. And Dorrit and I really want to do the whole employee journey. And for some of those of you who are going to watch this, you're going to know exactly what I mean. But for those of you in the back, this is from the minute you walk in to that workspace, or sometimes even before the interview stage.
Yeah.
Right, the interview stage, landing, which is your onboarding, your orientation. Then you've got what that orientation looks like. Then you've got sitting in the role, your day to day. Then you start going learning and development, promotion. What's happening with promotion criteria. And then who gets promoted, who doesn't. You know, we're really nice. Do we get promoted? We're doing our job and we're sitting here after, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. Do we get promoted? And then you start thinking about what that promotion looks like, C-suite, and even board. And I do want to say something. This isn't just about the workplace. This is about board level too. What is going on at board level? Because let's not try and say everything's fluffy there as well. Because Dorrit and I have done quite a few work, commitments with boards.
Yeah.
And all is not well. And it is not the rose garden that we think it is, because as we all know, if the culture of the workplace is a certain way, trust and believe what's happening at the board level.
Yep. And also, can you just quickly say what C-suite is?
Oh, yes, sure. So for those of you in corporate, you're going to know what the C-suite is. But as you know, that is the executive suite. That is your chief of staff, CTO, chief of technology, a CFO, chief financial officer. That C-suite that also affords you a lot of power and a lot of grace.
Yeah.
A lot of power and a lot of grace.
Yeah.
And also gives you power over.
Yeah, sure.
And also, let's not talk about whether some of those roles are deserved for some of those people. But like we said, it's a long podcast. We got time.
Also, I think there's something about work that isn't recognized as work. So although, like you just took us through like that thing of the employee journey of coming in, the recruitment phase, so the interview and the prep before and all of that HR process. As you were speaking, I also thought about people who work, but it's not seen as work. And historically, for example, when you think about women's work and women who are at home or women who are doing work, either raising family or just being at home, doing what they need to do for the household, how that's not seen as work. And it's certainly not paid. And so what are some of those stories? Because most of the time we don't hear about that.
That's right.
Most of the time we don't even see it as work.
Yeah.
And when I say we, I'm generalizing here. I'm talking about the social construct, the society that we're in, and how that is not seen. What is seen as work? And you mentioned power earlier, which I think is really important, because even work itself, when you are in work, that affords you a certain power. And when you're not in work, that affords you something else, and you're related to as something else. So even those things, the more I think about the idea of work and what that means, the layers of it, the hierarchies of it, what is seen as work, different types of industries of work, what are the things we can't talk about? What are the things that are like, oh, you're like, the oldest work going, like, for example, sex work.
Yeah.
And how do we speak about that? How do people then talk about the things they experience, encounter, all those things within different industries? And so Yeah, there's a lot. There's
There
a
is.
lot.
There's so much.
There's a lot to unfold.
And you know what, Dorrit? You're making me think about particular things, because a lot of my life I've spent in corporate spaces, and who is seen and who is unseen is a big one. And I remember so often when the way some of the staff who would come in to clean, either early in the morning or later in the evening, would be talked to or treated. And some of them also, it was like they were invisible. And what that must have felt like for them. I also remember speaking to one particular person about how he had spoken to one of the cleaners, and his dismissiveness of her, almost like she didn't count.
Yeah.
So you're right about, when you're working, the hierarchy in work, who is seen and who is unseen.
For sure.
And, Dorrit, you speak about sex work.
Yeah.
That is work.
Of course.
That is work.
Of course.
And the taboo.
Around
all
that.
the taboos around it.
Yeah.
And also, let's look at where we are right now with social media and all the platforms that are out there for people to make money in all different ways.
Yes. Yes.
People are getting paid to eat. People are getting paid to show their toes.
Yeah.
People are getting paid for a lot of other things.
Yeah.
There's OnlyFans.
Yeah.
This is huge. Now, some people may argue, well, OnlyFans is, pornography. It might be this, it might be that. But for all the people who are doing it, they are getting paid for it.
It's work.
So it's work. And so you speaking about the expansiveness, this goes on and on and on.
Yeah, it does. It does. And yeah, I can imagine people must have so many different ideas and thoughts and opinions about that. And again, I was thinking, when you was talking about those people that clean the buildings and do their work in order to make the rest of us feel comfortable when we go into a office or a place of work, I was also thinking about who is seen as being able to work. So I thought about disabled people and how the framework of work isn't set up for people who have differing disabilities, and what that is, what that looks like, what that feels like. Again, like we could do a whole episode or episodes on that, because there's different things. When even thinking now about how this is set up and how this could be accessible, coming into this building to do this and walking up 4 flights of stairs with no lift. It's good that we're fit and we were able to do that. However, if what if we're not able to do that?
Indeed.
What if we have a disability and so the building is not accessible to allow us to do that? Because a lot of the times what happens with work and disabled people is the people are then seen as, oh, well, you can't do. It's over there with you. You can't do that thing because actually, well, we don't have a lift or we don't have a ramp. But actually, that's not that person's problem. It's your problem. You have to make it accessible for people
100%.
in order to do their work.
100%.
And so even that is something for us to get into and allow people to share their opinions, their stories, as much as you feel able to and is okay for you to share. I think that's important as well to discuss that.
100%. And do you know what, Dorrit? Thank you for bringing that up, because I did a little stint. I worked a couple of years in philanthropy, and I met some incredible women. I'm not going to shout her out, but she knows who she is, and she is disabled. And she taught me so much. She's taught me so much about how society disables them and not the other way round. She talked about so many things with me, and I agree with you. I think there's a whole topic that we could do around work and disability.
Every person must work. Every person must work.
Yeah.
And also the whole intersectional piece that you talked about earlier. You know, let's break it down. We are not one thing. We are a collective of complex identities. And sometimes all of that plays out in a particular way in the workspace. So I would definitely think we're going to do a lot more episodes, people. Just trust and believe. We are going to do so many episodes around intersectionality and the workplace and what that actually means, because again, it's a bit of a buzzword and it's been hijacked. And you know, Doric can speak way more to this than me. But I definitely want us to do more. I want us to talk about it more. I want there to be a spotlight on this. I want us to talk about all of that, all the stuff underneath.
Yeah. Including how people navigate, you know, being neurodivergent at work, you know, and how the work then relates to people. When I say the work, the system of work, those systems that are in place that may not even consider neurodivergency and what that means, and how then the system has to, or should, I should say, should restructure, re-evolve in order to support people who are neurodivergent. A lot of the times we're still getting there. I think we're still, when I say we, I'm talking about society, is still trying to get there. I think we can do more.
Yeah.
I think there needs to be more understanding about what that is, because neurodiversity covers so many different neurotypes. And I think sometimes people just don't understand what that is.
Yeah. And I don't think companies can keep up to it.
No.
And I think because of social media and so much is being shared, so much knowledge is being shared, I do not feel companies can keep up. So a lot of the times they have great intentions. Oh, you know, we welcome people with neurodiversity, or we welcome people with disability. Shall we start with how people get jobs? How people get work? Shall we start with the whole talent recruitment bit? What is that? How do people come in? Or should we land on somewhere else?
I think we can start with that, but I guess even that, I think this is why this is good for us to do it together, because even our language around work is so different.
Yeah.
Like in my experience in terms of work and social justice, charity work, even creative work, we wouldn't say talent. You know, even the language of corporate, the language of particular sectors lends itself to the worker being a commodity, and that sometimes makes it quite difficult, because then you're already setting up a particular dynamic around who is talent, what is talent, you know, what does that mean? And so even the entry into work will be different depending on what sector we're talking about,
For sure.
which industry, all of those things, I guess. And I think it's, I mean, like you said, we could start with how do you get work? I mean, that in itself is just like, whew.
But I really like what you said, because I think that once you've been in an industry long enough, you start to absorb the language.
Yeah.
You start to it's kind of like osmosis. You just kind of breathe it all in and you go, right. And I've never looked at the language as marginalization. I've never looked at talent acquisition as actually having not being inclusive.
Mm.
And I had to really start thinking about that when you and I started to do our work, because you bring a different lens to our work. I really started to having to pay attention to language. And I would offer to our community who's going to follow us, and you are going to follow us. You are going to follow us.
Yeah.
I would say pay attention to language. Pay attention to language
100.
and how it marginalizes and dissects people in particular ways. And you're right, Doré. You know, talent acquisition.
Mm.
I'm a recruiter. I'm you know, people and culture person.
That's one that's really, you know, since George Floyd got murdered, and then we had COVID and Black Lives Matter uprising, then you got different names of roles changed very, very quickly. So you had people and culture. And I've always kind of been like, what is that?
What is that? Yeah. What
Is that?
Yeah.
People, which people, culture, which culture?
Yeah.
You know, is that the culture of the workplace? It could be. And then what does that mean? What does that look like? So, yeah.
It's really interesting. So there's levels to this. And so also when I talked about work, this podcast was really dear to my heart, Dorette, because my friendship groups are extremely dear to me. And over the years, I've listened to so many stories and witnessed so many things that have impacted people in good and bad ways, propelled people, completely changed people's lives in such a way. And we are working longer.
Yeah.
We are working, some people, not all, harder.
Yeah.
We have more invested in work than ever before. I think we are under surveillance more than ever before.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think we got to talk about surveillance.
Yeah.
We really got to talk about that, especially since COVID and hybrid working. And I wanted to explore all those avenues. And so many of it, Dorette, people do not talk about.
Yeah.
And when they do talk about it, is usually when something's gone really, really badly wrong.
Sure.
Because it's not when something goes good.
Sure.
I very rarely hear now, oh, this is really good. This has happened to this, you know, this company is doing wonderful things. I'm not saying there's companies who don't do wonderful things. There is some best practice out there, and I'm sure there's a rafter. But that is getting less and less in the social consciousness. And what you're hearing about is all the bad stuff. And I want the Chronicles to be a place where we talk about the good and the bad and the murky in between, because the murky in between is a combination of both. You know, when something wonderful happens and then the next minute it gets ripped from you, right? I want to talk about betrayal. I want to talk about plagiarism.
Yes.
I want to talk about people nicking stuff off of you,
stealing your work,
and then going, "That was me."
Yes.
I want to talk about the vying for position. I want to talk about power, how people use their power, men and women, to do particular things to get them in particular spaces. And I also want to talk about the socialization of work, how we socialize in work or not.
Yeah.
Who's going to drinks on Friday? Who turns up every Friday? What happens at those drinks? Who gets specific roles?
Are there drinks?
Are there drinks? You know, who's getting the role that's actually advertised on the intranet, on you know, the internal web? Who's already got the role, but you've got to advertise it. Yeah. But they've got the role because they've gone to drinks and they've networked with the right people.
Sure.
And rah, right?
Sure.
Because I've seen that.
Yeah.
I've seen that happen over and over again. And I'm like, hold on, but it's on the internet. Oh, it's gone. Well, how's it gone? And it's gone to somebody who's done that networking piece.
Yeah.
absolutely to perfection and got themselves their next role.
Yeah. Or it's been nepotism.
Oh, nepotism.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Right.
As you was talking about the different levels, I thought about people who work with the sole intention of changing the world.
Yes.
And I thought about people, and that covers so many
Activists.
spheres. Not just activists. I thought about people in health professions and
Yes.
people who work in climate justice and environmental justice and land rights and just a range of things that usually doesn't get seen as work, often gets seen as quite people being a nuisance, people disrupting the status quo, like, oh, I missed my train this morning because there was a protest. It's things like that. And I think about that being work as well.
Yeah.
And how many people, like you said, activists, absolutely, who are working their activism in so many different ways, because even in areas where I am active, we talk about different types of activism as work, and how there's the obvious, pounding the pavement, putting our bodies out on the line, going on the streets, protesting. That's one sphere
Mm-hmm.
of work activism.
Mm.
And there's so many others.
Mm.
And so I think about, when you was talking, I thought about people who work towards making this world a different, more expansive, just a more beautiful place.
Mm. Yeah.
And how many people are doing that work?
Yeah.
And what does it look like? And what's their experiences? And, even that, because work has become this thing that is about, for want of a better term, the corporate way of working, which is seen as like the
best practice, like held up as,
it's more like the common, the commonplace, or
yeah.
the common way of working. There's a whole other area. Again, I'm struggling to find language here.
No,
because I'm thinking there are so many things around the way the world needs to be changed, and I use the word need on purpose, because of the way the planet is.
Yes.
And what human beings have done to the planet. And then there's those human beings that are trying to save the planet.
Yes.
And that's work.
That is work.
That's work. And so how is that in the hierarchy of work? Where is that? Often, depending on where you are, where you're located, whether that's where you're located in your own social consciousness, you will be aware of that or not. People going on strike may really piss you off because they're on strike. Now I can't get me train. I'm going to be late for work. If they want more money, then that's got nothing to do with me. There's so many things. There's so many things that I've even heard standing on the platform waiting for the train, where people are really annoyed because this group of people have decided to take a position, to hold their position and go, actually, I am going to use my right to strike. I'm going to use my right to not do my work in order to negotiate something else, negotiate a better right, a better benefit, or whatever that may be. And so even that is really interesting, where you then refuse to work in order to attain better rights.
Yes.
And so,
yes.
And then what the knock-on effect, right?
Yeah, and what that means.
Because then I may be doing that, but now you can't get to work because you can't get your train.
Yeah.
Or you can't get your doctor's appointment that you've been waiting for.
Yes.
Because actually now the doctors are striking.
And the nurses.
Yeah. Because they are saying, we want a better right in order to do our work.
Exactly.
And so, even that, I'm like, wow, what then happens? Because this idea of work then becomes so loaded and so dependent. Me getting to work is dependent on you doing your work.
Exactly. And the thing is, I think that people don't join the dots.
Yeah.
That we are so joined up.
Connect.
We are so connected. We are so interconnected. And Dorrit, you just said something, and it really made me think about something. For the majority of people that do work like nurses, doctors, firemen, police, we could go on and on and on. Their act of activism in asking for what should be rightfully theirs is something that requires solidarity and big action. And when I think back to some of my own corporate spaces, that was actually dependent on individuality.
Yeah.
So I would have to go in and negotiate my worth.
Yeah.
My bonus.
Yeah. I mean, look, sorry, even the term bonus, like, come on, even that, like, I come from a place, bonus? What's that? And sometimes I'm like, oh my God, you're getting a Christmas bonus. You're getting a percentage of the profits from the company. I'm like, what? We're getting a Christmas card and we're going out for a lovely Christmas lunch or dinner, or we're having a bit of a Christmas party. What is bonus?
I know it's a discretionary performance bonus.
Yes, it's the height of capitalism.
100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
Can I be a capitalist and a socialist?
Good question.
Just asking.
Oh, answers on a postcard, people.
Can I be a capitalist and a socialist? So when you talked about those people that are doing their work but then have to advocate in solidarity to get their rights, I thought of the direct opposite in the area that I just spoke of.
Yeah.
Where it's about individual performance.
Yeah. Yeah.
Even then there is bias, racism,
Of course.
misogyny, all of that
Of
stuff
course.
attached to those conversations, depending on who you are having them with.
And there's power in the collective.
There's power in the collective.
So when something happens, like you said, in solidarity, and people decide to go, our work is worth this. So as a collective, we are going to take action and either pause our work in order to give ourselves better.
Correct.
And so we're going to move as this collective. There's power in that. The world is changing and has changed based on collective movement, based on people taking action.
Yeah. And space.
Yeah.
And space. And taking up space.
Totally.
You have to take up space.
And that's also part of our, as in human beings, work.
100%. 100%. So people, can you hear how expansive this topic is? Can you hear the multitude of things that we need to talk about? Can you hear that our chronicles is something that we could be talking about for years around specific areas? You know, Dorrit has just brought up a whole different context and lens around work and the interconnection of work. And it's funny you say that, Dorrit, because the minute there's a tube strike, you see it.
Yeah.
The minute there's a doctor's strike or nurse's strike, you see it.
Yeah.
God forbid the firemen go on strike.
And women.
And ambulance drivers and the ambulance drivers. You know, there's a whole rafter of people, I believe, and this is my personal belief, people, it's not, you know, you can think what you I think should be paid top dollar in every single aspect of the work they do, because they are literally holding up our society.
Yeah.
And they are the foundations of our society. But that is me. I don't know how other people feel, but I truly believe that. You know, doctors, nurses, firemen, service, any kind of service workers that is holding us up, cleaners, They should be paid
Yeah.
a lot of money.
Domestic workers.
Domestic workers. They should be paid a lot of money to do that work.
Yeah.
And because of what they provide, and because that is ongoing, and sustainability, and the effects of that. And without that, where are we? Without that.
Yeah.
And so that interconnected dependency we have on each other,
Mm.
and also the respect that is due to certain people that they don't get, by the way, the respect that is due. We also need to talk about,
You know,
where that is missing.
yeah.
It's missing.
I mean, you know, it's really interesting about like you said, about the interdependency, because we all have that. Adrienne Marie Brown talks about that, and how there is an interdependency, and what that means in terms of us being conscious of that, aware of that, but not in a place of, oh God, I'm going to be late now because you've decided to strike, or I'm not going to get my appointment because you've decided to strike. I'm not going to get me bins emptied because you've decided to strike. But rather, what would it be like if we went, wow, yeah, that's your work, so yeah, I'm going to be in solidarity with you.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I think there was a time in this country, gosh, even that beginning of that sentence, what does that sound like? There was a time in this country, I think, where there was strike action,
Yeah.
where other sectors would support one particular sector that went out to protest, to make a statement, to strike and take action for their rights, for their terms and conditions, or whatever it was at the time. And you'd get other sectors coming out in solidarity.
That's right.
With them.
That's right.
I remember that in doing that for myself in one of the roles I had back in the day. So it's really interesting when we talk about interdependency, and that one's work is dependent on another's,
100%.
and what that looks like, or
Yeah.
do we even look at it that way, or have we become as a society so neoliberal, so I, me, it's about me and I, that actually we're not thinking about the we and us, we're not thinking about the collective, we're not thinking about my other human comrade.
Yeah, for sure.
Do I sound like
no, you don't. No, you don't. You don't at all. You
my
don't.
comrade? But it's true.
It's true, because you see that as well in the workplace, and it comes out in different ways.
Yeah.
Where people will go and advocate for themselves and forget about their team.
Yeah. I mean,
you know what I mean? Like, I've seen that as well.
Yeah.
Where you're like, hold on a minute. He got what? She got what? And the team's like on their knees, like struggling. I've seen stuff where people have made ridiculous amounts of money. And, nobody got a pay rise or a bonus. And then people got, made redundant that year. But these caliber of people in a particular position got the bulk of the lion's share, and everyone else was like, like,
what about me?
more, where's, we're all in the begging bowl. So you see that, see the human condition, Dorette.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a beautiful thing to behold when it is working in the collective way, by and for, and sometimes it's horrible to see, because people just get stripped out, left out, forgotten.
Yeah.
But yet they're coming in every day.
Yeah.
They're coming in every day and they're doing it.
Yeah.
I saw a podcast. I saw a girl on IG a couple of days ago, and she said she's standing on a hill, and she said, I know for a fact in some of the big corporations, if you are really good at your job and you do, you're really good at your job and you're liked, you're really well liked, and you can influence one or two people, it is very rare you will get a promotion. They may pay you more, but you might not get that next promotion because they want you at a certain level. And she talked about the inequality of who gets the promotion and who doesn't. And sometimes the very people who are underpinning the whole thing just gets left out.
Yeah.
Just get left out. They get the scraps.
Mm.
They get the scraps. And that is definitely there, especially now in this society.
I think as well, when we was just talking, I also thought, because as you know, I love film and like just the moving image, acting, performing, that kind of stuff. I thought about when the writers went on strike in America and how people were talking about the caliber of writing for programs, and you'd hear it where you'd go, oh, that program wasn't, oh, that's when the writers was on strike, so you could see the writing wasn't that great. It's really interesting the effect that it has people's work on things, and how we see, you know, even in terms of like looking at a film or the work that it took to set this podcast up, and that's someone's work.
Yeah, someone's work.
Someone's come in and set this lovely studio up, put up our lovely logo, gonna add all the lovely bits, the jingles and all the little things that we're gonna add to it afterwards.
Of
like
course.
work.
Every pussy must work.
All those things
Work.
that we're gonna add to it. Someone's gonna do that.
Yeah.
That's their work.
That's their work.
And it's gonna help us out. And it's gonna look lovely, but it's still their work. And we wouldn't be able to do it without their work.
Exactly.
So
big up them.
Yeah, big up them.
Big up them, for sure. Like, we have to acknowledge people and what they do and how they do it. And big up them.
Yeah.
For sure.
And I think that's important. Like, that's part of the issue, isn't it? People don't get acknowledged for their work. People, like, I know you talk about bonus, but yeah, the real world. People don't get acknowledged. No shade. People don't get acknowledged in terms of, you know, yeah, that was a good job, or acknowledge the work you put into this thing, or
100%. 100.
what you did. But I just want us to pivot for a bit.
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's talk about any happy or funny stories around work.
Oh my God.
Because we've kind of put it out there and tried to go, this is the world and we need to heal the world through work, which is a thing, a real thing. But what else? Because we can heal the world through upful work stories.
Oh, for sure.
Upbeat work stories and fun things that you do at work where you feel like you feel that you can show up as your whole self.
Yeah. Oh, well, showing up as your whole self, that's a podcast in itself, right?
Yeah.
Because that, you know, people with the authentic self, and I've got my own take on all of that. I don't know. I don't know.
I can hear a whiff of skepticism.
I get it, and I too was a believer. I too was a believer that you could show up authentically.
You can.
There are pockets.
I work for a collective where the people in that collective can show up.
I think that is so amazing.
And it does feel special. It does feel rare. We're doing some great work around dreaming and, again, healing the planet and doing stuff for our communities. It is good. And it is something that I constantly have to go, wow, I can do this. I can be this. I can show up in all the different identities that I hold as a Black, cis, lesbian woman. Like, it's...
Yeah. I've only had that in my years of working. I've only had that experience, I would say, in 2 organisations that I worked for. The rest was, I couldn't be my authentic self. I did a lot of self-policing. I was constantly navigating spaces, people, places, situations, and I was really knackered and exhausted by that. The two organizations, because this is up for, the two organizations that I was my authentic self, I loved it because I could swear, I could say what I want. I say, oh, shut up, what are you talking about? And it would be taken, you know, really well
Yeah.
because they know me and they know that I'm not being disrespectful or anything like that.
Yeah.
And I valued those two organizations because I was like, I can be Pam.
Yeah,
I
sure.
can be me. And I can sort of go, well, no, I don't really believe that. And also I could code switch as well. So Dorrit and
there's
I
another one.
Dorrit and I are Guyanese heritage, right? Mum and dad are born in Guyana. And so every now and then I could fall into my code switching and be like, what you talking? What are you talking about? Or I'd be like, no, man, what's going on? So I could say those things, and that was gold to be able to say those things. And also to talk about things that was specific to my culture. So when food and stuff like that, I'd be like, y'all ain't gonna cook up rice? What you all doing? You know, little things like that. And bringing the Guyanese in was wonderful. And also the fact that people could understand when I did that as well.
Yeah.
And as I said, those two spaces were really liberating for me. But up until then, Dorrit, authentic self didn't really exist. And also I'm somebody who speaks a lot with their hands and I move my body a lot because that's just the way I am. And I'm high energy and I see myself as a dynamic individual. And so that's the way I emote. And my energy levels are really high. And I really had to police that in certain spaces because, you know, you're coming in with all of this. It's too much. They're like, whoa, they're not ready. And also the way you are perceived, it's never in a good way.
Yeah.
It's always negative. So, you know, all your traits that you think are yay actually is a bit of a no for certain spaces. So the authentic self, I get it. I'm with it, but I do think it is really special places that you can bring that to.
I agree.
Because you can't. Because I've been in meetings where I've wanted to say to people, shut the fuck up. You have no idea what you're talking about. You haven't had any idea about what you've talking about for the last year and a half, but we are here to just manage you, comfort you, and keep you whatever. And the whole process of that being in extremely inauthentic and having to almost lie because you're lying. You're kind of going, oh, all right, but actually you don't really believe. That is exhausting.
Well, you're navigating, aren't you?
Yeah,
you're
all the time. You're surviving it.
And also the authentic may also be about how you are, how you show up in who you are in the world, how you move through the world.
Absolutely.
And I said earlier about the not different, but the multiple social identities we embody. How authentic can we be with that?
Right.
You know, if I go, you know, I go by the pronoun they, is someone going to start questioning me then? And I don't know what that means, or she. And I'm like, I told you I'm they. You know, what happens within that? And a lot of that is also people being able to catch up and learn. But as I always say, there's Google. Google it. Like, you can go on, you can Google it, you can DuckDuckGo, you can go on and find out. There is a plethora of information out there to find out, and it shouldn't be dependent on the people who embody these different social identities to have to constantly be explaining who
Oh,
we
all
are,
the
what we're
time.
doing, etc.
All the time.
And so there's a whole thing around how we then show up authentically
Yes.
and what that looks like in how we can be who we are at work.
Yeah. And the sayings, the language again, Dorothy.
Yeah.
I mean, some of the sayings,
When you say sayings, what do you mean?
oh, let's all get together for a powwow.
Oh God, no.
Or
But again, that's in specific spaces,
it's in
right?
specific spaces.
Right.
Or people will say, too many Indians, not enough chiefs. Do you see where I'm going, people?
Yeah.
Like it's a minefield that you constantly have to go, I wouldn't say that if I was you.
But it's very old colonial language.
Very old colonial language.
That
but
still stays with us today.
Yes, it stays with us today, but also there is a plethora of people, Dorrit, keeping that alive.
Right.
There is a plethora of people keeping that language, that tones alive because they don't want to Google they.
Yeah.
They don't want to Google, actually, you go by these pronouns. They don't want to engage with pronouns.
Yeah, sure.
They are anti all of that. But however, those are the people that are propping up this stuff.
Yeah, sure.
I remember, and this is one for myself, I was doing some work with Dorrit and another colleague, and we were doing some racial justice work. And we were prepping. And I said to Dorrit, you know what? Dorrit said, we need to get to the detail. And I said, yeah, to the nitty gritty.
Oh, God. Yeah, I remember that.
And they both stopped. And they both looked at me. And I said, oh, my God, what have I said? And then they both beautifully and calmly, and I know she's my sister, but she was like, Pam, the origins of nitty gritty, you need to look up. I was like, I was mortified because I thought, oh no, I've really like stepped into something here that for me was my consciousness was, I know what that means.
Yeah.
But actually I didn't know what that means. It was just something I heard over and over again that I had absorbed. And now I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And then when I actually looked it up, I was mortified what the meaning was. And I rang up Dorrit and I said, Dorrit, I had no idea. And I've never used that terminology again.
Yeah. And I don't think you're alone in that. We are all learning. And there was a time we didn't know what we know now.
Agreed.
And tomorrow we won't know the same. And, it goes on, doesn't it? And I think the whole point is not to cancel because you said something wrong, but it's more about, and even wrong is inverted commas. Because what's wrong for me may not be wrong for you, which is why you said there's a whole set of people still holding up this colonial language within a work space or in any space. I think it's also the fact that people don't know the origins of particular language. Like our language is colonial. Like this isn't an opinion. Like this is fact. It has come out of that colonial project. And so a lot of the things, like you said some of them, Chinese whispers, all these things mean particular things that have come from a hierarchy of race, identity, etc., nationalism, etc. And so if we're not able to research, interrogate, and know that, then how are we going to treat each other, not even in the workplace, just as human beings?
Yeah.
How are we going to do that without going, hold on, wait, what did I just say?
Yeah.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
And then be interested in transforming
it.
And the reason why I'm emphasizing being interested, not doing it because, oh, that's the wrong thing, I better do it right, which is always good too. But actually, are you interested in changing this colonial language that has so much heritage attached to it that is trauma? that is,
It's all trauma based.
yeah.
Yeah, it's all.
And
It's
so
awful.
aren't we creating a new world? And if so, come on then, let's do that by learning our language and recreating it.
Mm,
And not saying, when I say recreate it, I mean understand what we have inherited, because we've inherited it, right?
for sure.
So that, surely that then means we can do something about it,
Yeah.
and change it. Just like work language, depending on what work you're doing, is constantly evolving,
Yeah.
is constantly changing. So we can do that across.
Absolutely. And actually, we'd like to hear from people who is looking at language within the workspace. We'd like to hear from you and, tell us what's happening with language in your workspace. Tell us how you're repositioning language.
Yeah.
Tell us what you're dismantling and what you're actually reintroducing or introducing.
Yeah.
That would be really good to hear from you guys. All right.
Yeah, for sure.
What's, and Dora, if you give them the email address, email us or just DM us on IG.
Yep, our chronicles at proton.me.
We're really looking forward to hearing from you because honestly, there's so much here to talk about. So much. I'm really glad you said that, Dorrit. And again, it's being interested, it's being curious about this stuff. It's not going to happen overnight. And also, as well, we've really got to think about, there's 5 generations now in the workplace.
Right.
Is there 5? 5?
Wow.
Yeah. So there's boomers, Gen X, millennials. Sorry, millennials. What's after millennials? I can't remember. Gen Z. There's a few of us, and we're all coming from different spaces. So language is going to be super important, people. Super important. And I want you to think about that. Think about language. Think about what's happening. Think about how we're doing things and what really matters and what's going to matter for the next generation.
So I've just brought it up. So there's like the baby boomers, like Pam, you just said. Then there's Gen X, which takes us from 1965 to 80. And then there's the millennials, which is 1981 to 96. And then Generation Z, 1997 to 2012. And Generation Alpha. So we've gone all the way back to A, which is 2013 to 2025. And so, yeah, so that would be 1, 2, 3, 4 generations right now in the workplace. And with each generation brings a different ideology, perspective, position.
Yeah, 100%.
Based on who they are, what they know, the background, like we can go on, right? And so
we want to hear from you.
Yeah, from everybody.
We really want to hear from you. We want to hear from all of the things that we've discussed today. We want to hear from you around, what's happening in your workspaces. What are you surviving? How are you thriving?
Yeah.
We really want to hear about the thriving. And we want to hear about what's good practice. What do you feel is good practice? What would you like to see that gets introduced into the workplace? What is wellness for you? What is happening in that space for you in the workplace? And also behaviours, which we talked about. Dorrit started this section off about upful things, and there's so many upful things that have happened in workspaces for myself, where people have come together, where people have collaborated and responded in such amazing ways, and whether that's helping each other out, and whether that's actually doing work in the community as well. For myself, and this is work, but it's a passion as well. I mentor young people, and I really, really enjoy that. I enjoy their perspective. I enjoy listening to them. I enjoy what they bring to the table. I enjoy how they see the world, and also mentoring them in a way that really prepares them for what this world has to offer and gives them a wider lens. And I know that brings me immense joy. And I got a lot of my mentoring opportunities through work,
Right.
which was fantastic, and I loved it. The majority was with global majority girls. That was ranged between 13 and 16, which is really, really fundamental times in their life around what they're making for the decisions and so on. And it remains a joyful and upful piece of my own passion that I really love. And again, you know, shout out to any mentors out there that doing this great work with young people. And even I've mentored people in the C-suite as well. And I've done some executive coaching, which I really do. I really enjoy. And I like to bring some critique, you know, to particular things to help people be the best they can be.
Yeah.
And again, shout out to all the executive coaches out there doing amazing work. But you said something, Dorette, earlier on, and you said people have to be curious. People have to want to find out the information and be ready to do this type of expansive work, whether it's mentoring, coaching, learning language, workplace language. And also being a good manager and just a good person. There has to be a readiness and willingness
For sure.
that is part of what brings about that change you talked about earlier. You know, what kind of social change do we want to see? What do we want to see for young people? What do we want to see for disabled people? What do we want to see for all those intersections? And again, within that work, talking about intersectionality, you know, being a Black woman with my background and speaking to these young girls has been just so phenomenal. And they have critiqued me.
Yeah, of course.
And they have said particular things to me when I was working in particular spaces, and they've called me out. They've said, why are you here? We've looked on your board and there's no one who looks like you on your board. We've looked at your C-suite. There's no one looks like you on the C-suite. You know, they were calling me out. They were saying, why you?
Yeah.
And why not anybody else?
Yeah.
And why aren't I in those spaces?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, you know, this works both ways, people. As you know, this works both ways. Representation is everything. But also meaningful, progressive activism within representation is everything.
Do you know what? It's really interesting because you're right about what you can also learn from those young women that you have been and continue to mentor, because it's really interesting that the whole thing around representation is what happened after George Floyd got murdered. All the workplaces went out and was like, we need to represent. And so created all these roles and ticked all these different boxes and said, we want this and we want to be able to show that, you know, Black lives do matter to us within our work area. And it was really interesting because what then happened was a lot of it wasn't meaningful. A lot of it was exactly that, a tick box. And so, yeah, it'd be really interesting to hear from people what that experience was, regardless of where you was located within the experience. It'd still be interesting to hear. And again, just following on from what Pam talked about, what are the things we'd like to hear? What are the things you talk about? Like, if it's okay for you to share in the privacy of your home after you come home from work or after you finish your work day, whether that's home or elsewhere, what are the things you would like to chat out but don't? And that's why we're here. If you don't want to chat it out, let us chat it out for you.
Yeah, send us in what you want us to talk about.
Yeah.
And as I said earlier on, it can be anonymous. You don't even have to send your name in. If you want to send your name in, then happy days, and you want us to speak on your behalf, and we'll put it out there,
Yeah.
and let's discuss it, and we can solutionize for you, or, you know, we can let the community solutionize for
Absolutely.
you, right? So that's what we're here to do. This podcast, I really want to underpin this, is to help people. We are here to support, raise awareness, and help community that joins us. We are talking about every aspect of work. As I said right from the beginning, the good, the bad, the ugly, and the whole employee journey.
Mm.
What's your experience from the beginning? The whole, how do I find a job? When I got the job, how was I interviewed for the job, to when I left? And we've got to talk about all of it, you know, the promotion in between, on the no promotion, the stagnation, the exit, why you exited, what happened, you know, and then the impact of being at work, right?
Yeah.
Like we
Yeah.
talked about the erosion of your spirit, the
Yeah.
erosion of your confidence, the erosion of you feeling the capable person that you walked in as.
Mm.
What is happening for people?
Mm.
That's what we're here for. Send us in all of your queries. We are here to talk about everything. We're going to pick particular topics, right,
Yeah.
Dorette?
Yeah.
We're going to pick particular topics, right? And this is what we want to do. We want to do particular topics, and we are going to use the time to speak about your queries, talk about it, say, this is what we're going to do, answer them, solutionize. And we want to invite guests onto this podcast.
Yeah.
Want to hear from people.
Yeah. So we're going to invite people that maybe we've worked with in the past, or people that are doing particular things out there in the world, and that can speak about work. The important thing is that, as Pam said about solutionize, we may not have the solutions. The solutions we may do from our experience, but it may also come from the community, from yourselves, and from those who are listening, who are emailing in. You know, it's a collective effort. That's what it is. And that's why we called it Our Chronicles, because it gives us an opportunity to chat it out in ways that we don't get to do. And that's why we wanted to create the platform, right?
Absolutely.
So that people can share the things that matter to you. And it can, and, you know, yes, it's a space for you to share those things that may be difficult, but it's also a space to share the joyful, upful stuff, the funny stuff.
We want that.
The stuff that happens at work that you're like, oh God, that's so shameful, but it's funny,
Yes,
right?
yes.
And it brought you some kind of joy, or it's like a party piece that you talk about, like, oh, you'll never guess this is what happened. I remember one time I went to give a presentation. Sorry, I just need to share this with you now. I went to give a presentation, and I got to the lectern, or whatever you call it, and as I went to get my glasses, I forgot them. So now I'm reading off my paper with no glasses, and as I'm reading, people, I can see the audience looking at me, kind of a bit like, what? And then I realize I'm reading the wrong thing. It was so shameful. But I can laugh about it now. I was reading the wrong thing, and I had to just stop. Like, I literally stopped and went, like, you know what? I've forgotten my glasses, and I actually can't see what I'm reading. And then people were like, oh, some people laughed. Others was like, all right. Others had already lost. They'd already left the building.
They're gone.
But the good thing was I was able to say it. Now I can look back and see how funny it was, but at the time I was mortified. Listen, if the ground could open up, I would have just jumped in, because it was so embarrassing.
Yeah.
But again, that was a work experience. That was a learning for me, because I never forget my glasses again. and also it just meant that, yeah, I could tell it, just like I'm sharing it with you all now. I could retell it, and it can be funny, but it's also a learning, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we want that from you guys too.
Yeah, I've got a different one that I'd like to share. Go on. It just came to mind.
Yeah.
I had to give a presentation to one of the MDs. This is many years ago. and I had this beautiful dress, and I was a dress girl. I always used to wear lovely dresses. And I had this beautiful dress. Anyway, I got into the dress. It was a little bit snug. A little bit snug.
That's code for tight.
And I thought, but I thought this dress was like my power dress. It made me feel really like
Yeah.
Anyway, it was a little bit snug. Anyway, I was going through the presentation. This is about 40 minutes before I'm due to take it. So I'm going through it and everything. And I'm like, okay, and I've got all my facts and I've got all my data and my research. And as I went to bend down, my pen rolled off the desk. And as I went to bend down, I could hear the dress go.
Oh, no.
And I thought, no. Anyway, I jumped up and I ran to the ladies and I looked, and the seam right by my bum had all come undone.
Oh my gosh.
Now, where I was going to give the presentation, I would have to walk in and then go on a stand so people would see the back of the dress.
Everybody could see your panty, your underwear, everything.
But the way I dealt with it was interesting, because I thought, have I got a jacket?
Yeah.
And then I didn't have a jacket. I had an old mash-up cardigan that I used to leave in the workplace.
Oh, right.
But it looks so bad. And you know when there's little bobbles on it, you're like, no, I can't.
Well, you just leave it on your chair if you're
so,
cold.
So if the air can't come, I
Yeah.
said, Pam, no, you can't. And I couldn't for a number of reasons. One, I was in a particular position at this particular organisation. Two, I'm a black woman. We got to come correct. We got to.
The pressure.
We got to.
The pressure.
Everything. Three, I was known for my dress sense. So, there wasn't going to be anything under par. So what I did, I started to my brain went into free fall, and there was a Whistles up the road.
Wow.
And I thought, please have my size, because now I'm just going to buy any dress, but please have my size. And I ran to Whistles and I bought myself a navy blue dress, shift dress that fit me really lovely. And I put it on and I completely regrouped. And I don't know about you, but when I get really worried, I start to sweat. So I had to get myself together, and then we did it. I did it.
Yeah.
And when I told my friends afterwards, they were falling about laughing, because no one knew that I'd gone through this experience.
Yeah.
But also it made me revisit the cardigan at work. Just saying, yeah. Revisit that. I started to take jackets, good jackets, So it's stuff like that.
Yeah.
There's gonna be funny stuff that happens, right?
Yeah, for sure.
And you will remember it, and sometimes you remember it in a particular way.
Yeah.
And other people might go, oh, maybe it didn't go like that. We don't care. We don't care. What we care about is send us in the funny stuff, right? Because we want to hear it. And also we want to hear about things that was going downhill and you turned it around.
Yeah, you saved the day.
Saved the day, you turned it around, and now you're like, yes.
Yeah.
You're there. So that's what we want to hear about.
Prevailed. We've all prevailed something, right?
Oh God,
at work.
Yeah.
We have. We've all kind of managed to navigate something at work where you're like, boy, okay, I did that.
Yeah.
And we even surprise ourselves, right? Because you're like, how did I do that?
Yeah.
But you did it.
Yeah.
Like, it's those stories too.
100%.
Because those stories are wins. We may not recognize it as a win at the time, but they are. The wins over ourselves, over our ideas of ourselves, our perception of self, the things we think we can't do.
Yeah.
And we do it.
Yeah.
Oh.
And also as well, I want to hear from the procrastinators. The ones that leave it right until the end, right? You've got to do a presentation. You've got to make something happen tomorrow morning at 10 o'clock. And you're there at 9 o'clock. You're having a glass of wine or a beer and you ain't done nothing. Like, I want to hear from you guys. I want to hear, how did you pull it out the bag And did it go well? Whether it went well or not, how did you do that? And I think
Well,
that
like the last minute.
the last
Yeah,
minute people,
yeah.
the lastminute.com people I want to hear from.
Yeah.
The people who go, oof, I've got an exam tomorrow and I haven't even read a book.
Yeah.
Those people.
And they do
they
it.
pass.
And they right. They pass, and I'm like, oh my God, I've been swatting for months.
Yeah. Or the other thing that happens is I want to hear from people who have really like gone the grind, really done, oh, I did this, I did this, I did this. And then you get into the room and then, you know, you're just about to do the grand finale and someone says, can you just go straight to page 3?
Yeah.
We don't need all that stuff. Or can you just go to page 7? We don't need all that. I want to hear from those people as well. What happened in that moment? How did it make you feel? What was going on? And also, what was the outcome? Right? Because I know a lot of us have done work and nothing has come from that work.
Yeah.
And that sort of feels a bit rubbish.
Yeah.
So I want to hear from people like that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know?
Just anything, I guess. I think anything people want to bring that we can air.
Yeah. That we can air, yeah.
That we can air.
Yeah.
So people want to bring.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we're going to be able to curse on this podcast or say effing all that. I mean, I know I've sworn already on here, but I do want it to be an open space. I don't know what IG's going to do with that, but I want it to be an open space for us to say and be however we want to be.
Yeah, for sure.
In particular things.
Sure.
I want to be able to swear if I want to swear, or if something has made me particularly angry, I would like to be able to express myself in that way. And so should you.
Yeah.
It's just that I don't know if we're sharing it, IG's going to let us do that or whatever
It's
platform.
true.
That's all I'm saying. But swear away. We're good.
Yeah.
We're good.
Yeah. And if you want us to kind of edit, just tell us as well.
Yeah, for sure.
But I think the important thing as well is to note that if you want us to keep it confidential, we will. We can add in, we can make up names, or we can just do no names.
Yeah.
We can just say this person sent it in. They live in London. They live in Liverpool. They live in Manchester. They live abroad.
Yeah.
Wherever.
Yeah.
We can just do it that way.
Yeah. And send us your stories, right? We love to talk about people and speak to people who are going through particular things and how they've overcome, or if they've managed to get a solution, or sometimes they haven't got a solution. We want to hear all of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and every level of work, no matter what you're doing. You could be a lone business person, like you've got your own business and it's just you on your own. What are some of your challenges that you're facing? What are some of the great things that have happened to you as a sole trader, right? Is that the term on the government website?
Yeah.
Sole trader. If you're
trader.
a sole trader, we want to hear from you as well.
Yeah.
If you're a small business owner, what's it like running a small business? What is really going well? What is the upfall things that you can do? What are the things you've said we're not going to do and we're bringing in new stuff? We want to hear from you, right?
What's it like being at home and working from home and tapping into daytime TV? You know, that has its own. That's its own dynamic, right?
Yeah, you know.
Its own culture.
That's right.
Daytime TV, like.
Yeah, and can you watch daytime TV? And also, what are some of the practices that some of you are doing collectively, either as a staff team or a wider collective, that you do that is based in work, but maybe you do outside of work? We also want to hear stories of friendships, all the things that have blossomed. I know my immediate circle have all come from work.
Yeah,
you know, people have always said over there, oh, you can't make friends at work. Well, some of my best friends I met at work.
Yeah, we didn't actually talk about that.
Yeah, so friendships and relationships at work. What's happening at work?
Have you had lovers at work?
Have you had lovers at work? What's going on at work?
What happened there? Did it all crash and burn?
Yeah.
Was it fruitful? Was it just a great time and now you're over it?
Yeah.
What happened? Did you end up getting together? And, you know, what happened?
We want to hear the love work stories. We're here for it.
The situationships.
You know, the situationships that are on the DL. You know, all of it. How do you navigate that? Because also, Dorrit, there are particular organisations that have caveats, I recall, about dating at work.
Yeah, that's right.
Dating at work, who you date, conflict of interest, all that good stuff.
Or you've got to declare it.
That's right. You've got to declare.
You've got to say if you're in some kind of intimate relationship. But I mean, even that, intimate relationships at work, like we can navigate all of that.
Yeah.
Because even now thinking about it, I'm like, that can get quite juicy.
Yeah.
Not juicy as in salacious, but juicy as in there are so many things that we have had to navigate in terms of intimacy at work or the crush. You got a work crush? What was that like? Did you have a water cooler moment? Did you even have a water cooler? What happened? Meeting car park, at the bus stop, on the train? Where? There's so many things, right? So let's chat it out.
Who is bringing sandwiches for who?
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Who is bringing sandwiches for who? And, if there is home baking, who is sharing the home baking with each
that's
other?
right. Did you make up a dish? Did you make any rice and peas for someone and bring it in? What did you do?
What we doing? What we doing?
Yeah.
And also, intimacy at work, and even that should be explored, right? Because to be fair, Dora, there are people who have great relationships and are intimate, without any sexual anything, because intimacy can be just a relatedness,
of course,
a closeness. So we've got to talk about all that good stuff as well, and sometimes how that gets misinterpreted.
Yeah.
And then gossip.
Oh God.
We got to do gossip. We've got to think about gossip. The good, the bad, and the ugly.
Oh God.
And
is there
how
good gossip?
And
I don't know.
Well, some people, some of these stars when they go, all media is good media.
It's true. It's true.
How are we positioning
all of that?
All of it.
Oh my gosh. So much, people. There's so much.
So the gossip thing is real.
Yeah.
And also the gossip thing we've got to get underneath because, for some people it elevates them. For others, it actually demeans them and actually marginalizes them as well, depending on who is saying the gossip and what is happening at the time.
Yeah, because the gossip can be very... it can go bad. It can go very badly.
Yeah.
So again, if you feel to share, come with it. Check it out.
We can do one on gossip.
Yeah.
That on its own is just...
Yeah. Send us your ideas. Send us what you want us to talk about. Any ideas for content and subject matters. We're here. We're here for it all day, every day.
All day, every day. I'm here, Dorette's here, we're here for it. And as you can hear, we've had very different experiences work life. So we're here to bring a balance, but also we are relying on you, our new community, to come to us and let's do work. Yeah. Let's talk about work.
Let's chat it out our chronicles. Let's use our space and our chronicles to do so. So we look forward to hearing from you. Our chronicles at proton.me.
Send us in your stuff. We are here, we are ready, and we are waiting. And we will be inviting some of you onto our podcast.
Yeah.
Because one of the things Dorette and I talked about was that we wanted to invite people on, not just to talk about their particular expertise of work, but to talk about some of these bigger topics and how that reflects on the areas of work that they've been in.
Yeah.
And we also want to hear different voices. So we've got a range of people we want to definitely select to bring to us and say, let's do it.
For sure.
Let's do it.
So we look forward to hearing from you all. Again, our chronicles at proton.me. We look forward to hearing from you. Until next time.
Yes, thank you so much for being with us. We hope that we've raised some level
Sparked
something for you. Join us, follow us, and we will see you soon.
Yeah. Hope to hear from you soon.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Everybody must work. Everybody must work.